Hi everybody, this is Abby,
And Garrett.
and this is Time to Travel. Today we are super excited to share with you our first content podcast, so not just an introduction about us, but a little bit more about our traveling. And we're going to start off with Iceland and give you the full rundown of our trip and hopefully share some of our fun stories with you.
Yeah, super pumped. We're actually going to talk about travel, and it was our last major trip together, so super excited.
Yep, last trip abroad, last international trip. We went in October, which was a pretty good time to go to Iceland. I would recommend it. It wasn't like the peak of everything with crazy tourists.
Depends who you ask. If you ask the driver, who was me,
Garrett,
I might give you
driver.
a different answer on that one. But let's hear what Abby has to say.
Yeah, no, I think that it was a good time and it was convenient for us. So, for those of you that don't know, I'm a teacher and I get a fall break every October, and it worked out well that Garrett was able to come.
Super nice. Yeah, super nice.
Yeah, so this was a trip that we actually took, not just the two of us, which is kind of rare for us. Normally it's just Garrett and I taking a trip. But this time we brought along one of our good friends, Corinne.
Woo!
So Corinne and I go back to college. She and I were in the same sorority. And then when I studied abroad in Spain, she was actually my roommate. And I have to give a lot of the credit for like my love to travel to Corinne. And obviously Garrett too, but Corinne has traveled her entire life and couldn't have been more excited to share it with me when we traveled and lived abroad in Spain. And she just like taught me the ins and outs of like how to book flights, how to like find the best things to do in a certain place or the cheapest airfare. So I definitely owe like a lot of my passion for travel to Corinne, or like at least, giving me the travel bug. So.
Yep. Shout out to Corinne. Hope you're listening. You obviously will be, but it was a great trip with her. She's always really fun. We also have a very interesting story with her that was pretty funny. But yeah, we're just gonna dive into this and talk about our trip.
Yes, as Corinne likes to say, she is a ray of fucking sunshine. So you'll see that come out in some of our stories today. But
yeah.
All right. So planning for Iceland was honestly like one of the most difficult trips that we've ever planned for, to be completely honest. And to be fair, Corinne did a majority of it. She was super interested in going to Iceland. She always has been, and had kind of already compiled a list of things to do. So Corinne really took on the lead with planning our trip and getting things squared away. So we didn't do too much of that, which is like super rare for us because normally we're researching for hours and trying to find the best things to do. We certainly like the spontaneity of things once we get abroad, but we want to make sure that we don't miss anything, which is why we do a ton of research.
Yeah, definitely. Corinne definitely took the lead on this one and did tons of research, and I think you did most of the day-to-day stuff along with her.
Yeah.
And then I did all the driving. So we had different jobs throughout the whole trip, which really worked out for the dynamic, and it was great. So we're just gonna give you a few little fun facts of Iceland to begin with, and then we're gonna kind of dive into how we planned our trip and what we did in terms of getting around and everything. So to begin with, we did the RV. We drove around the ring road, and it was a little intimidating at first, but looking back on it, it was definitely the right decision by far. It was amazing. Yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat again.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we noticed was when we were traveling, like places in Iceland are expensive, and I think that's a deterring factor for a lot of people. They're not always super interested in going just because it looks like it's pretty spendy. Renting a car is expensive, and then accommodations are expensive. Not like dramatically different than the United States, but enough so that it's noticeable. And so we were kind of looking at those things and decided that like, hey, this might be a really good opportunity to rent an RV and just give it a shot and see if we like it. Like, it was a week, which was like a fair amount of time, but nothing that would kill us. So we decided to give it a go. It was really affordable, actually. We rented the RV for about $1,200 for the three of us total. So, you divide that by a week and it evens out to $400 a person, which is way less than we would have spent on a rental car and accommodations day to day and night to night, whether it's an Airbnb or a hotel. So I think we really lucked out with that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we were very, very fortunate to have 3 of us on the trip too, which to break down the cost a little bit. But the RV itself was for 5 people, so it was a little more space for all of us. And I don't know how you can really fit 5 people in that RV.
It would have been tough.
It would have been a tough squeeze.
3 was perfect.
Yeah, but it was good. We shout out to Cuckoo Campers. They were really great. They, if you're ever in Iceland and renting an RV, definitely look up their company. They were very affordable, and they worked with us, and were very good. So.
Yeah, super accommodating and helpful as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to start back in the beginning, back in Colorado, to really dive into our trip. So the dates of our travel were October 16th through the 24th, which was, like we said, a good amount of time. We left on a Friday after work, and it was a little bit stressful. I am nervous and like to get to the airport like a solid 2 hours ahead of the flight.
Oh my gosh. Any other couples out there that have to deal with this? Like, there's one person in the relationship that has to make sure the gate exists, and then the other person, it just kind of like, I'll show up like an hour and a half, hour before my flight.
Along for the ride.
Yeah, that's us. So
yeah, and I'm certainly the one that needs to make sure that the gate actually exists before I can do anything else at the airport. But so Garrett's dad took us to the airport. Super grateful for his support and his car, driving us to the airport. But we got there, or we were on our way there, and Garrett realized that he didn't have his international driver's license. So it like immediately created some panic for me. I was freaking out.
Whoopsie.
Well, just if you're curious, you do not need an international driver's license in Iceland.
Yeah. So some other countries you really do. Our honeymoon in Greece over the summer, you did need one pretty much anywhere you rented. So it just depends on the country. Make sure you look up that beforehand. Do your research. But Iceland, they're very chill and you don't need one. So
here's another hot tip. AAA doesn't keep your international driver's license as like a downloadable file or like anything that they can email to you. So if you get one, like keep it handy, take pictures of it, do something with it because they will not help you out. But so anyway, we made it to the airport. We called Cuckoo Campers. They said you don't need an international driver's license. Everything's going to be totally fine. And we were like, okay, phew, everything's good.
Yeah,
we're all
good.
right. Yep. And the gate existed.
Yes. And I did not get in too much trouble for leaving the driver's license at home, so it was all good.
We were set, but so we boarded our flight. We flew with Iceland Air over to Iceland. It was a direct flight from Denver. It was probably 7 hours.
Yeah, not bad at all.
No, it was pretty reasonable for flying a fair distance. And our flight tickets were also pretty inexpensive. I think they were about, all things said and done, $500 a person, which, anytime that we can fly anywhere internationally, especially like across over to Europe, for less than, $700, we think it's a pretty good deal.
Definitely.
So, all right. So then we landed in Iceland, and we went through customs, and here's another little like bump in the road, but so we show up to the customs and we go up to show our passports and tell them what we're doing while we get there. And my passport at this point is like very full. It just expired in January, so I got a new one.
Literally every page had a stamp or a visa on it, so it was very, very full. Like to the point where you were very nervous to even give it to the person. To
the point where I was standing in line and literally looking for a page where they could put a stamp in my notebook. Like, here it is. Like I found a little spot, but. Anyway, I showed it to the guy, and he was not amused. He was like, no, I can't put a stamp there. I don't know. Maybe there's a limit to how many stamps you can have on a page. Not sure. If anybody knows that, like, let us know. But
exactly. Well, and he told you that you should, go to the U.S. Embassy in Reykjavik. And
he told me he wouldn't, they wouldn't be able to let me out of Iceland unless I got a new passport. So I immediately was kind of freaked, but...
Pure panic set in, and then I am like, no, you can definitely get out. Like, don't worry about it. It's totally fine.
So I decided to roll the dice, and everything was great. It was fine.
Yeah, listen to your husband once in a while.
Anyway, we landed in Reykjavik, and it was an easy bus ride into the town center, and we met Corinne. Actually, her flight landed like 20 minutes after ours, so it was really good timing. We hopped on the bus together, and we went straight to Iceland, or into Reykjavik in Iceland. And it was, we got our first glimpse of what Iceland was like. Garrett had been there before, for a couple of days, but didn't necessarily get the whole Iceland experience. So
no, nothing like this. That's for sure.
Yeah, we were super excited to go back and see a little bit more. But we landed at around 7 a.m., so it was early. And thank God when we got to the hotel, they had our room ready, which was perfect because we could, like, drop our bags. And I think we spent just, like, maybe an hour regrouping and, we tried not to nap. That's, like, another big thing that we try not to do when we fly international. Just to make sure that we get, like, on this like, same sleeping pattern as the rest of the country where we are. We try not to sleep, stay up that day until it's, like, an acceptable time to go to bed.
Yeah, definitely try to stay up as much as possible until you really maybe have to take a little nap, or even try to go as long as you can until dinner. Try to get on the same sleep schedule. So
yeah, it's a hard, long day, but it's worth it for sure. We haven't had any problems, like, adjusting to jet lag when we are good about not napping.
Yeah.
So,
but one of the biggest things about Iceland that we realized is how to pack for it, and we made the very smart decision to, and I will give credit to my wife, it was her idea, to pack our ski jacket and ski pants, which I thought was, I'm like, what? Like, we're not going to be doing any skiing. But it was clutch. I mean, it came in big. Like, I think we wore our, little gross, but we wore our ski jackets and our pants, like, every day.
Every day.
And because they're not waterproof, but they're
way more waterproof than
anything else.
Yeah.
And we'll get more into that, but that was a very key decision because we went straight to the hotel and changed into all of our winter stuff. So
it was cold.
Very cold in Iceland in October. If you ever go there in October 20, so mid-October, so it's pretty cold. It's like a winter. It's like going anywhere in the winter in the United States. So yeah.
Yeah, and while we were there, there's between, like, 6 to 7 hours of daylight. So we also kind of had a small window of time where we could really maximize our trip and fit everything in. But we managed to do so, and it was great.
Yeah.
So our first day, we really just spent, like, wandering around Reykjavik, exploring. We took a walking tour, a free walking tour. That's always my favorite way to be introduced to a new city. There's typically, like, in most European cities, and other cities as well. We've done them in Mexico and Guatemala as well. But there are free walking tours, and they take place once or twice a day. Certainly look for those because it's a great way to, like, jump into the city, learn a little bit of the history and the background, and oftentimes you can get some really good local tips just from the guides. We typically try to tip the guides, I don't know, whatever we think an hour or two is worth of our time, because that's how they make their money. But it's the perfect way to...
Yeah, they're great. And a lot of the guides are younger, or like 20s, 30s, so they have a lot of good tips for dinners or restaurants and bars for people our age and stuff.
Speaking of bars and where to buy alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
You can only buy alcohol at a bar or at the liquor store. There are no, like, you cannot buy them at grocery stores. You can't buy it, like, any other place. So if you go to Iceland, make sure you go to the, like, designated government liquor store. It's a government liquor store.
Yeah, and it's, like, open very certain hours of the day. So you got to be, if you want to load up for a road trip, let's say, you have to kind of make sure you know the hours. And this is where we came in lucky with our guide, is we asked him all the hours of the liquor store, and he was able to tell us when they're open and not open, which is pretty, like, I don't know.
It was important for us.
Yeah, it was important for us, but the hours fluctuate, so make sure if you do that.
Not sure Garrett would survive the trip without it. Just
okay. Yeah, especially not after the first night. So
awesome. So we had a great night in Reykjavik, and then the next morning we got up and we headed out to Cuckoo Campers. It's just outside of Reykjavik.
Yeah.
To pick up our van. And I'm gonna foreshadow a little bit here, but when we got in the taxi to go out to Cuckoo Campers, the first thing that the taxi driver said to us when we were getting out was, "Be careful with the doors because of the wind."
Yeah.
So I'm just going to leave that there, and we'll come back around to it in a little bit. But
well, and almost everybody in Iceland speaks English, and very good English at that. So he was listening to our conversation, and he kind of gave some tips on what to do and what not to do.
Oh, yeah. And Iceland Driving, actually, he gave us a really great recommendation for an app because the weather in Iceland can change immediately.
Yeah.
And so we took a look at that, and we kind of had 2 itineraries planned, but we decided to go with one over the other because the weather in the south part of Iceland was really treacherous.
North, in the north.
In the north was, somewhere in Iceland it was really treacherous. So we decided to change our plans and do something different. But we'll have the name for that in our show link, or in our show notes. You can check that out. And if you go to Iceland and are doing a road trip, absolutely make sure you have this website on hand.
Yeah, definitely. Came in handy.
Yeah, so we got to Cuckoo Campers. We got our van. They had everything set for us. There was also a ton of leftover food and leftover just amenities that you might need. Little handy things to have that you can just pick up, and if you have leftover things when you're done with the trip, you can put them back on the donation shelf. Mm-hmm. So we grabbed a few of those things. We got a little tour of our van. Our van technically seated 5, but we're both shaking our heads saying that's a little bit of a stretch.
There's a little sleeping area in the bottom, normal van up front in the cab,
3 seats across.
It seats 3, and then there's this little shelf above that I guess you could squeeze 2 little kids up there.
Yeah, they would have to be children.
Yeah, but it was a great camper for us, but it was definitely for 5 people would have been a tight squeeze. So keep that in mind if you book your van.
And we did end up going with the bigger van, and we're grateful for that because it would have been tight. It was already a little bit claustrophobic, but it was okay. We made it work for a week. So after we got our van all squared away, we headed out and we made a stop at a grocery store where we picked up a ton of different food items and different things that we wanted for the trip. Corinne had also we talked about doing a little bit of meal prep before, and she brought some tortillas and some taco seasoning over from the US so that we could easily do some ground beef and just the taco seasoning in, and it would be a super easy meal on the road. And that turned out to be pretty clutch for us, I would say.
Yeah, that was definitely clutch. Good shout out, Corinne. That was a good idea.
Awesome. So we decided to do the entirety of the ring road, not just a section of it down in the south, which is kind of the more popular route, but we took the whole ring road all the way around the island. And our first day we started out headed west, and we went clockwise around Iceland. So
so if you look at Reykjavik on a map, right now we're going directly north of there, and then we're gonna go clockwise around Iceland.
Yep.
So this is where we ran into some really, really bad weather right off the bat. I mean, we're talking within hours of leaving Reykjavik. It was just
snowy,
a blizzard,
windy,
and we're from Colorado, and we've done our fair share of winter driving, but we're in a big van. I've never driven a van this size before. New roads, new surroundings, and we hit just a complete blizzard.
Yeah, so we were going out to the also, please pardon my Icelandic. It's going to be horrible, and I apologize for the pronunciation. I think that was honestly the hardest part of planning was not knowing the words or being able to recall the words because of how long they are and how difficult they are, and the fact that the sounds aren't necessarily the same. So, our first day we went to Snaefellsnes Peninsula, and out there's a beautiful coastline. There's a couple arches that are over the sea. There's a black church and just super dramatic landscapes. But it gave us our first little taste of Iceland. But it was a little bit hard to see because of, like Garrett said, the snow coming down. So we saw all of those things and we were pretty, excited about them. And then our next stop was going to be to Kirkjufell, which was, you've seen it if you've Googled a picture of Iceland. It's that iconic waterfall with a peak above it that looks like it's just been carved out of 2 glaciers. And so we get there and we can't see shit.
It was brutal. I mean, we couldn't see anything. So I think we still had 4 or 5 hours left in the drive.
It was definitely a disappointment because you look at pictures of Iceland and you're like, dang, that looks cool. I want to go there. And we could not see a single thing.
Yeah, and this is one of the risks you take going in October. You bypass all the crowds, but the weather is definitely
hit or miss.
Hit or miss. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, but
it was
it's
cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
it was a loss that we were willing to take.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, we decided, okay, well, this wasn't quite worth our stop. Corinne had said, I don't know if we need to go out there and do all this, and we should have listened to Corinne, but we didn't. So we leave the waterfall, We still walked around the waterfall. It was pretty. And we make a trip to our campsite, and we realized that the campsite is still like a solid 4 hours away. At this point, it was probably 4 o'clock or so. And again, just a blizzard. So we're following our Google Maps. We had a Wi-Fi router, which was super handy. So we never lost service. We could just plug in the Wi-Fi router, and all of us had, access to the internet, so we could
definitely
navigate.
recommend it. Definitely recommend it if you ever go over there.
And preload your maps just in case you lose service. That way, like, you still can see where you are on the GPS and keep going. But we are following the route, and all of a sudden we realize that we're like no longer on a paved road, and we are just starting like out on this back road. We see like probably like 10 different cars, some vans included, like off the side of the road, emergency vehicles. Like, we're looking at that app that the taxi driver had told us to check out, and like the roads around us are just like, there's all these caution signs, and we're like, oh god, this isn't great. This is not good. So like, we were trying to keep the spirits high, but they were definitely like day one, not in the greatest place.
No, and as being the driver, I was stressing out, but I was trying not to show my stress. But I was a little nervous. We had studded tires, so I was pretty confident.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, it was just the wind that really gets you when you drive a van that big. But we made it pretty far. About 3 or 4 hours later, pitch black.
Yeah,
and we're on like
another dirt road,
random dirt road in the middle of nowhere.
And we're trying to go up a hill. we're making our way up a hill, and we get about 3/4 of the way up the hill, and all of a sudden a huge gust of wind came and just like blew us off into the side, like literally not quite like a ditch, but kind of,
but pretty close. And there's so much snow that you can't tell where the side of the road is. No guardrails, pitch black, blizzard, you name it, all the conditions.
Like blizzard, like when you turn on your brights, you realize that you just made it 10 times worse. So you have to turn, just back to your headlights. But... Yeah,
and we're not close to any town at this point, and so the stress level was getting there. But I made the decision to back up the van all the way down this hill, probably, maybe a 1/4 mile, and then try it again. So we finally got up this hill.
Took us about 14 tries.
It was a very, very good way to start off the trip. So we finally got up the hill, and about an hour later, we made it to our campsite.
Yeah.
So that was.
We made it to our campsite in the off season. Like, since we were there in October, you don't have to book the campsite in advance, but if you go during peak time, you definitely do. And also, in some places, we randomly didn't have to pay because there wasn't necessarily like a campsite attendant there. We tried at every place that we went, but
there's some drop boxes and
this
stuff.
This one was the only one that we did have to pay. There was somebody kind of coming around, which was awesome. It wasn't like a scenic campsite or anything, but it was just kind of like a halfway point between, here and where we're going next. So yeah, that was our first night. Garrett was super grateful to have all of that alcohol that we talked about getting.
Oh my god. Okay.
He definitely was ready for a cold one. Let's just say it that way.
Viking beer. Definitely recommend it if you're in Iceland. Get a Viking lager. So those were good.
They were good. So the next day we woke up and we realized that we had a pretty long haul. We were going up to the north so that we could check out a few things that way, but it was about a 7-hour drive. So we went west and all the way to the north. We went to Akureyri, which was is the northernmost big city in Iceland. It's the second biggest city in Iceland. And the drive was totally fine. It was super scenic and pretty, but when you see kind of a similar landscape, in my opinion, for 7 hours, it was, nothing exhilarating.
No, I would definitely say the south was a little more scenic than the north. The north was pretty brutal being the driver, honestly. It was very, very windy, constantly fighting a headwind or a side wind with a big van. So, but it was cool. I mean, we later that night went to, later in the evening we went to the turf houses, saw those. Those were really cool.
Kind of the typical Icelandic Viking settlements. They don't necessarily there aren't trees in Iceland, so they built their homes into hillsides out of turf to insulate them.
Yeah, so it was really interesting.
We took a little stroll in Akureyri, one of things on Corinne's bucket list in Iceland was to get ice cream, surprisingly.
Oh yeah. Fun fact is like one of the most popular foods in Iceland, like even in the wintertime, is ice cream. Yeah. Which is crazy.
And it's like it's kind of like more like soft serve, not really like
it's like a
thick, creamy custard,
ice cream, I guess.
It was fine.
But they just crave it over there.
And the best place to get it was up north in Akureyri. So we did that.
It was cool.
It was cool. It was a nice like stop along the way. We went to a pretty cool Christmas shop as well.
Yeah.
Another notable thing in Akureyri. And then at night, this was probably my favorite part of the day. We went to the Myvatn Baths, which are hot springs. Super pretty, kind of comparable to like the Blue Lagoon, if that's what you're thinking of. But... Yeah,
definitely kind of like the Blue Lagoon of the north. So it was really cool. That kind of made the driving and the whole day just worth it right there.
Absolutely.
It was really cool. They had like like a swim up bar and stuff. So it was really sweet.
We enjoyed our time.
Yeah.
Although I will say like it wasn't necessarily as warm as we were all hoping it would be.
Yeah.
It was a bit chilly.
Yeah. Well, not chilly, but it's definitely not like, 104-degree hot tub.
I think the wind also doesn't help.
Yeah, our heads were a little chilly.
So, then we went up we went back to our campsite, spent the night, got ready. And the next day we were headed out to this volcanic area. Again, pardon my Icelandic. Modrudalur, is this volcanic area.
That's pretty good.
Thanks.
That's way better than what I don't even want to try that.
So this area was super cool. It just it looked like Mars, and tons of movies are filmed in Iceland when they're trying to get that dramatic scenery that looks otherworldly, because it truly does. Like there was bubbling mud, massive steam ports. I guess I don't know what you call them.
Volcanic steam and
steam just
coming out of the earth.
There was an outdoor shower with warm water.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But it was just really cool. Definitely looked like we were on Mars. And that was just a unique scene that we had never really experienced or seen before.
Well, and I got a really cool video of Abby leaning against the wind, and the wind just propping her back up.
The wind was ridiculous.
The wind was very, very ridiculous. That was kind of the hard part of getting used to 3 days into it. And at this point, we hadn't really seen the sun yet, I don't think.
Yeah, no, not really. We were still warming up to Iceland a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, literally.
So we saw that, and then we decided that we were going to continue on our way. We had a couple other stops. But as we were driving, one of the ways that we made use of our kitchen was we would just send Corinne, our chef, to the back. We'd pull over on the side of the road and be like, all right, Corinne, time for lunch.
Yeah.
She'd hop in the back and make some sandwiches, and when she was done and ready, she'd be like, all right, pull back over. I'm ready to come back up to the front.
Yeah, it was perfect.
It was perfect. It worked out really well for us. So then we went to Dettifoss, which is the most powerful waterfall in all of Europe. That was really cool. But again, it was the weather can just change so dramatically. It was a blizzard for 1 minute, and then the next minute the sun came out.
Yeah, it was cool.
There were rainbows because of the spray from the waterfall. So that was really neat, I thought.
Yeah, and if you look at Tempted Travel's Instagram, there's a really cool video that I posted of this waterfall with Abby. And then Abby's back, and then I kind of pan out and see the waterfall.
And we'll do another post that shows you some of our favorite things and what we highlight in this podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
So then we continued. We saw a couple more waterfalls along the way. Honestly, there are waterfalls everywhere in Iceland.
I feel like that's the main thing to see in Iceland is waterfall stopping.
Yes.
You're literally
chasing waterfalls.
You're literally chasing waterfalls.
Oh, you're serenading
us. That's right. But yeah, that was a lot of the trip was pretty much waterfalls, and
worth it though. It's so pretty.
It's so pretty. I mean, they're gorgeous waterfalls. So especially being from Colorado, we don't get that a lot.
No, certainly don't. So we decided we were going over to this other town, say just for Jor. And we had to cross another mountain pass. So we start heading up over the mountain pass, and I don't know. I was sleepy. I might have dozed off a couple of times.
Yeah,
but
shocker. Corinne stayed up with me and
provided entertainment.
Yeah.
Sorry. So driving over the mountain pass, I feel like this was again another one of those situations where Garrett was like, "Oh my god, are you freaking kidding me?"
I mean, every day it was just on point. We would just hit a winter storm every single day, and it was the roads were very narrow, no shoulders, no guardrails. You're dealing with the wind, so there's just an added level of stress to it.
But it was beautiful.
It was beautiful, yeah.
We just keep telling ourselves that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get down into this town, and it's probably about 4:00, and we don't have a whole lot of daylight left. But we decided to explore a little bit. This is the town where there's the Rainbow Road leading up to the Blue Church. So
yeah,
if that
super
rings
pretty.
bells to you. Super pretty. We loved it. It was like up in this really deep fjord. There are cruises that actually leave from this port and go to Denmark, right?
Yeah.
So it was cool. But we get down there and Corinne goes, so Garrett,
Oh my gosh.
our campsite is actually back over on the other side of the pass. And
Nope.
How did you respond to that?
Oh, absolutely not. We are staying here.
That was a hard no.
Hard no.
Which turned out to be like awesome. We found a really great like campsite right next to a couple places in town.
Well, yeah.
And we had
There's a campsite right in the middle of town, and then right across the street there's a really cool restaurant / bar, and then right next to that is like a hotel that has a cool coffee shop. So
yeah,
I think we were pretty settled in for the night, and I think Corinne just like agreed with me and laughed it off, and
yeah, she did.
Yeah, so yeah, I was not gonna go through that again.
No, which was fine because we had eaten dinner in the van the past 2 nights, and we were kind of interested in seeing a couple different like Icelandic places. So we found a really great place to like have dinner, and we played cards and just hung out. But it was a great night.
Yeah, and every meal that we had in Iceland was just spectacular. Honestly, I had a lot of lamb.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of lamb, a lot of fresh seafood. So you can't go wrong, really. I don't know what the vegetarian options are, but the seafood is just absolutely spectacular, obviously. So
Yeah, a lot of fish.
Yeah,
obviously.
it was really, really good.
So the next day we woke up to snow. Surprise.
Yep.
But it was pretty. It kind of like made me feel like it was Christmas time. Even though
in
it's
October.
only October.
Yeah.
And I mean, we get snow early in Colorado, but it was just a different kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So this day we decided, okay, we will go back over the pass today.
Well, we had to. So to get out of this town, you have to go back over the pass.
There's one way in and one way out.
Yeah. So, but luckily the pass was pretty good. No trouble getting over it. So
we didn't have to stay there for a week, like some of the baristas were telling us.
Yeah, some people at the local hotel were telling us that once you get snowed in that town, you might have to stay there a week. So
cancel your flights.
So
you're done.
The girls got a little stressed out by that, but luckily we were able to get out of there, and we were on our way to the next city, town. So
yeah, so we drove along the coast, and we were headed now down towards the south. But we drove around like lots of fjords. Our final destination was Hofn, so in the southern part. But there were fjords, there were mountains. It was just like the most beautiful landscape. There was another area that looked strikingly like Mars.
Yeah.
And here's where I'm going to go back to the part where I was prefacing something or foreshadowing for you. So we get up to the top of this like really cool mountain area. And it looks like Mars again. And Corinne's like, oh my God, this is so cool. And we all thought it was really cool. And Corinne said, Garrett, can we please pull over and take a picture? So Garrett, like reluctantly being a good sport, was like, sure, fine.
I'm sure I rolled my eyes.
He's good at that.
Yeah. Especially with Corinne.
He just likes to make her feel
well, there's
like
nowhere
she's
to pull
dramatic.
off. Like, we're not talking about like big shoulders or pull-offs here.
This is true.
Like, they're little dirt, like, I don't know, cutouts in the mountain, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how you put it, but
and about every mile there's maybe like a little pull off. But so Garrett reluctantly pulled over.
I did.
And Corinne opened the door, just like, threw the door open like you might.
Wham!
Wind.
The door rips the door, like, the wind rips the door past its hinges, and Corinne gets whipped out with the door. And I hear Abby...
like, our door is backwards. Like, I'm not exaggerating. And I was just freaking out. I was like, oh no. Oh,
I hear Abby just like yelling, Corinne! And then I see Corinne just like trying to push the door back past the hinges, and Abby's trying to pull it.
Oh my God, I was pulling as hard as I can from the inside of the van, and Corinne was pushing, like literally running with the door, pushing, trying to close it. That's how strong the wind was.
Oh, it was nuts.
Oh my God.
But it was just, I mean, I laugh at it now because looking back on it, it was
You were laughing then, too.
It was kind of funny to see you guys just like trying to push this door back past the hinges, but yeah. So day 3 or 4, I think it's 3. Our door pretty much breaks.
So, yeah, we get it closed and we drive a little bit further and, like, we check it out. And, like, first thing I do is I try to open the door and it's like, ah! And I'm like, oh, God, this is not a good sound.
Well, and Abby was pissed.
I just knew it was going to be expensive. It was fine. I got over it. Like, despite this and despite, like, another little mishap that we had this day, I think this day was honestly my favorite. So... Anyway, we get past the door thing, we move on, and we keep driving. There's just, like, the most stunning landscape in this area, I thought. Like, deep fjords, steep mountain peaks, like, vast, like, fields at the bottom of the mountains with, like, sheep in them. Just, like, the most lush green, like...
Yeah, when you get to the south, and if you look at Iceland, we're talking about the southeast corner. It is absolutely beautiful. I mean, it definitely opens up and you have the ocean there and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So.
And so our next stop was some geothermal baths. So the bath that we went to was actually, it used to be a
bathtub. We're not talking like baths or like a lagoon. We're talking where you pull off to the side of the road, you hike like maybe 50 yards and you get to this tub. And it was
a big tub, but
it's a big tub. There's pictures on our Instagram, but there's water being pumped into this tub from the geothermal pool, and back in the day they used to use it to clean fish and stuff, which kind of sounds gross, but don't worry.
I think they cleaned up before that.
It was clean, but like, you know, there's other tourists there just making a day out of it or trying to the experience out of it, and so we decided to go in, and I think Abby regretted it big time.
No, like, I loved it. It was really, really cool. The water was not warm, and it was
warm.
So...
It was not hot.
Okay, it was warm, not hot. And in 40 degrees, that's not, like, super comfortable. And it was the windiest thing ever.
Yeah.
So, like, windiest day. So we got in the tub, and there are pictures, again, on our Instagram, where the water is literally, like, splashing out over the tub and then flying back and, like, hitting us in the face. But at that point, it's, like, nearly frozen. So we're getting hit by these tiny little, like...
Yeah. Like,
hail, but, like, frozen water drops.
We're having fun. We're having fun.
Gosh, the wind was... It was really fun. But getting out was my least favorite experience.
Well, the funny thing was, like, Abby and I got in the tub before Corinne, and Corinne just comes around the corner in this, like, bright pink Barbie bikini, and we're just like, and then she just has the biggest like smile on her face, like a ray of fucking sunshine, and she's like, "Hey guys, I'm so ready for this bath," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, so I think she made the experience a little bit better, and we all just kind of laughed it off and had fun, and there was other tourists in there that were going through the same pain misery that we were.
We had a couple of brave volunteers. Like, we took turns taking pictures for each other, but it was beautiful. Like, it looked out over the ocean. Just stunning. But it was awesome. So then after that, we got out, we dried off. Corinne did try to go for a run. Corinne was training for a marathon at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Garrett has this video of Corinne running and trying to run up against the wind, and it looked like she was barely moving, which was just hilarious.
It was hilarious.
And she said it was like, oh my god, she didn't run very far, but she was like, that was the hardest like mile of my life.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
But
and at that point, the sun was coming out, and the weather was getting a little bit better.
Spirits were much higher.
Yeah, the wind was still brutal, but the weather was a lot better, and the landscape was a lot prettier. So
yeah, absolutely. So then we went on to our next stop, and it was Vestrahorn Beach, which is the black sand beach with these really dramatic peaks like looming over it. And this was beautiful. We were there like pretty much like golden hour.
Oh yeah,
maybe a little bit later, until sunset.
I think this is probably one of the best night in my opinion, experience that I had. So yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous.
It was gorgeous. Like the water reflected the mountain peaks like perfectly. I think it was like dealt with the black sand and just like making it a little bit more reflective. But it was so cool, just like unbelievable views.
Yeah.
And so Garrett and I were like, holy cow, this is so cool. So we started walking out towards the beach. You have to walk a little ways from where you can park to get there. And Corinne forgot something in the van. And so she was like, oh, I'm going to go grab this real quick. So she ran back to the van. And then she was gone for like 20 minutes. And Garrett and I were like, what the heck is she doing? Does she just need like a little break from us or what? And finally she like comes back and she was wearing her Uggs. And her Uggs were drenched and just covered in this black sand. And we're like, Corinne, like, what the heck happened to you?
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my God, you guys, you couldn't hear me screaming? And we were like, what? No, like, we literally couldn't hear anything.
We were having fun. We were having fun taking pictures.
Apparently, Corinne literally, like, stepped into some quicksand, which is a thing that we didn't realize was going to be a problem in our adult life, and got stuck. Like, stuck for, like, 10 minutes until she could finally, like, manage to, like, yank herself out. But she was,
well, she got stuck, like, down to her... She'll probably debate this, but I think down to her shins or her...
No,
like,
I think it was, like, up to her thigh,
oh,
she said.
That's a little scary.
Just one leg. But still, it was like, oh my God. I couldn't imagine that. And we felt really bad, but, like, we were also laughing.
Yeah, I have no problem laughing at Corinne.
We love you, Corinne.
We love you, yeah.
But, so, anyway, after that, we headed into Hofn, this small little town in Iceland, in the southern part. But here's where we had, like, one of our most delicious dinners, I would say. Oh my gosh,
it was amazing.
We decided to get, like, a sampler of things. So we got, like, lobster soup, we got langoustine, we got reindeer, we had fish and chips, and it was just, like, the perfect, like, way to end, like, a good day.
Well, and the prices too, guys. Like, when you go to Iceland, there's some times where you just can't worry about the prices and just indulge a little bit because it's gonna be expensive, but it'll totally be worth it. And what we did is we shared a lot of meals just to kind of, like, we would buy a few plates of food and then just share them, which kind of helped out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and the cost of, like, the most expensive thing is honestly is alcohol.
Yeah, like an average beer I think is around $10.50.
$10 to $12. Yeah.
So I think it's ranked 4th most expensive, like, average beer in the world. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, but on the flip side, like, when you pay for a meal, it's average $40 to $50 per person, which is, like, sounds like a lot, but, like, also remember that when you're, like, in Iceland or in other European places, like, that doesn't include, or, like, taxes already included into the price of the food, so there's nothing additional when it comes to your table, when the bill comes to your table. And tipping isn't necessarily, like, a requirement, and it's not really even, like...
They add a lot of the gratuity, so...
Yeah, they pay their servers differently than they do in the United States, so, you know, that's about the going rate of going out to a meal in the U.S., I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, one of the things, too, is we rented the van for a pretty decent price, so we had a little flexibility when it came to eating out and stuff.
Yeah, and we're not the type to skimp on, like, having a good experience and a good meal.
Yeah, and we ate a lot of our breakfast and lunch in the van. So, so
that's, like, our go-to cost-saving way to afford to go to Europe.
When we travel, we definitely like to indulge a little bit at dinner. I think that's our main meal, to have fun and let loose and stuff. So, and
we were certainly indulgent in this meal, and it was great.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so we get back in the car and are driving back to our campsite, and we were talking. We're like, I wonder, like, are we gonna see our, like, are we going to be able to see the Northern Lights? Like, we're super excited about this. And we were like, not really sure. And Garrett's like, they're right there. And it was just like this light green, like, barely visible, like, streak through the sky.
Yeah.
I'm like, interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
it was kind of hard to see with the naked eye, but a lot of the photos you see on Instagram and stuff are taken with professional cameras, and so they definitely pick up the long exposure and stuff. And so, but it was super cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was awesome once you realize it is really, really pretty. So
it was gorgeous. So that kind of, like, topped off our day. It ended, like, perfect evening, perfect night. Like, you know, with a couple mishaps during the day, but I think it was worth it.
It was very good.
So we're going to pause right here, and we'll come back with a part 2 because it looks like we're running out of time on this app. But we'll be back at you with part 2. Just stay tuned.
Yep.
Thanks
Bye, guys.
Much.